What's up, guys? I'm Justin Davis, and today we're gonna fly a little 4S Bi-Copter. Check it out down there. It has articulating motors on there. It has 7-inch props on some 2205 series race style motors. Those are 1400 kV. So what's the benefit of low kV? We talked about this on the channel before. It's going to give you a longer flight time. It's not going to give you as much punch like an FPV race quad, but this is not an FPV race quad. This is a Bi-Copter. But the cool thing about this is that it works out of the box. So I charged up the 2 Li-ion batteries that come with it. They are 4S Li-ions. I haven't tried a LiPo yet on there, but I think it would give it more punch and more power if you wanted to do that. It also has 2 beepers on here, a flight controller for stabilization, and it has GPS return to home. So we're gonna do a flight test with it, and we're also gonna do some FPV with some DJI HD on there, and we're gonna see how this thing flies. It's totally experimental, and that is the fun thing to me about this. It is completely 100% experimental and something new and fun on the channel. So let's go ahead and have some fun today with this Bi-Copter with GPS on there, flight controller, stabilization, manual flight, all the bells and whistles on this thing, and it just looks really cool. So let's go ahead and get it up in the air and start flying. We'll do some FPV after that, and I'll give you my final thoughts as always on this review. There we go. So I switched the switch down and then back up. So now that the stick is all the way down, we're going to bring it to mid stick. We should be able to come up into a hover. Let's go ahead and lift off. And let's check out the GPS position hold. Right now, I'm in center stick right here, so it should stay in one spot. And it's, you know, right away, it's not as stable as like a multi-rotor, like a 4-bladed multi-rotor, like a quad, but it is kind of holding its position a little bit of wobble there, and it also holding its stabilization. Let's go ahead and try the yaw. That's on the left stick here. Spin it around. It's got a pretty fast yaw rate. That's cool. And now let's go ahead and get behind the heli, this Bi-Copter, and push the right stick forward. And there it goes. And it's so strange because the body of this aircraft kind of tilts back a little bit, and the rotors tilt forward as it's doing forward flight. So my FPV setup might actually have to like look down a little bit, which is really something kind of like different for me. So I'll just bring it back down so you guys can see it a little bit closer up, and we'll walk toward it. It's actually pretty easy to fly. See how the back of the heli just kind of hangs back a little bit, and the rotors themselves are completely level. That flight controller is working pretty good to control this thing. And I'm wondering if the tail actually does anything. You guys think that helps it turn? It does have kind of tail fin, 2 tail fins on the very back. This thing is wild. It looks really cool. I got the white and yellow one, and I painted it black because I just wanted mine black. They also are now selling a black one, which is cool. Man, it looks like a silhouette once it gets up there, but line of sight's fun. This is so different. Let's just try some straight ahead flying here. And we are in GPS mode, so, you know, if we let go of the stick or I get, you know, kind of twisted around, I can just like let go of the stick and it's gonna stop way out there, wherever it is. And it also has altitude hold. But what I'm noticing is that maybe the trim needs to come down just a little bit because it seems like it rises just a tiny bit. There you go. It leveled out right there. That's cool. Let's bring it back. We could test out RTL. And RTL says it's on mode 5 here. Switch down to... Okay, so my RTL is set to land straight down to the ground. When I switched into channel 5, it went straight down to the ground, but it was going to land. So that's good. If it started to fly away or whatever, we could switch that switch and have it land. And that happens on quads as well. You can do 2 types of return to home. You can return to home to the point where you took off, and you can also return to the ground, straight down. Let's try some non-GPS manual flying, and hopefully I don't crash here. You should probably do that while the tail's facing you. So I'm going to come back here a little bit. And now you see it's drifting, kind of turning around a little bit here. It seems to be flying a little bit wonky like that, you guys. That does not seem normal. Does that seem normal to you? My controls are all wonky. So I'm not liking the manual flight mode. If that sticks off right there, it kind of leveled itself out. And I could be in the wrong position. I believe it's trying to return to home. So that very top switch is full on return to home, autonomous return to home. Here it comes down to the home point. So let's just see how close it lands to the home point. And we'll switch it out if it's gonna land in the wet grass, because I don't want it to get wet. So no wonder it was kind of fighting me and doing its own thing when I switched it up, but no manual GPS mode. Like the manual is not that great, so I actually have it labeled wrong there. And you guys are learning along with me today, because this is the first time I've ever flown this flight controller, and I'm still learning it. So now I'm gonna switch out, and it was gonna land about 3 feet from the landing pad there. So that's kind of cool. So now I'm back into the GPS hold mode, and now I'm gonna go with this channel 5 all the way down, and that is manual mode. Okay, now we're in ADI mode. It doesn't have any type of altitude hold anymore or GPS hold in this mode. So now I can really get way more aggressive with the flying. So it's a little faster. I could even do this dual rate switch here, which is really gonna send it a lot faster. And wow, that's crazy. Right into the ground. We got a little crash going there. All right, let's go ahead and disarm it. It's trying to really stabilize itself. It's like a a little animal over there in the grass. Man, it's wet now. Hopefully that doesn't kill this thing, but the thing about it is that the flight controller is sitting on the outside of this, and you do have a hatch that could go over it, which I really should have on there today because it is super wet out there in the grass. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. I think the manual mode is quite scary. A great place to fly things like this is go out where you have a giant field like this with no one around and tall grass. Tall grass is your best friend with helis, because even though they can kind of bobble around in the tall grass, you're going to have way less damage or no damage sometimes when you go down in tall grass. When I used to fly really large helis, I always flew over tall grass, like 3 foot of grass, seagrass or close to the beach. Try to keep them out of the sand, of course, but motors can get water on them, no problem. But it's this stuff right here you don't want water on. But we are back in business. We could take off again, but I'm gonna make sure everything is dry, and then we're gonna do some FPV, guys. All right, my guys, let's go ahead and do a fun flight. This is all about fun. It's not about the smoothest video in the world, because you're not gonna see some smooth video in this ride. This is like completely experimental, playing around. I just put the camera on there without knowing what angle I needed. I do need a lower angle, and I'm gonna fix that later, but baby, she is hot glued on there, and we are gonna go for a ride. So here we go in the stability mode, and you can also fly it in sort of a manual mode, which in FPV I don't recommend, because line of sight I immediately crashed soon after going into manual mode. So I've seen other guys do like flips and stuff with this copter, and they get pretty wild with it, but I honestly just enjoy flying it the way it is in stability mode. And I think most people are probably going to fly this Bi-Copter like that. So if you're ever interested in kind of building one for yourself and say putting GPS on it, doing iNav, you could go that route and try to build it yourself. And maybe even I could add a different flight controller on this one and have it fly a little better. But the flight controller itself is proprietary. It does have a pretty good reputation. But I have to say, for what it does out of the box, this is kind of what I was hoping for. I was not hoping for a lot of problems with this, because you know, for around $500 you expect to be able to take it out of the box and it flies, and that's what happened for me today. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and wrap it up now that we've done FPV and go back to the bench and give you the final thoughts. All right, guys, so the flight test is all over, and I have to say that in all my years of flying was a completely new experience. I wouldn't say that this is the greatest aircraft to FPV, but it is really, really fun to be up there in the goggles and having controls that are just completely different to what I'm used to. So in a way, it's kind of like learning how to fly all over again. And as I was up there, I was also kind of learning different stick techniques that would allow me to achieve like a smoother, more stable flight with this Bi-Copter setup. And you know, you're gonna have some kind of tail wag with this type of setup because of the articulation of the two surfaces, and that's gonna create some of that rock and roll effect. But overall, it was like a fun and just a totally different experience for FPV for me. It's not like a glider, it's not like an airplane, it's not like a quadcopter, it's not as smooth and predictable as a quadcopter. And sometimes you're making kind of corrections to the flight path because of the articulation of the two arms. And so yeah, it's kind of a unique animal and unlike anything I've ever flown before. And that's what's fun to me about RC. So I like it, and I'm planning on keeping this one for myself when I really want to go out and play in the sunshine and out in a big field like this. And that's what RC to me is all about, playing around and having fun, doing something brand new that you've never done before. So that's the cool thing about this. And I think the coolest thing is that even though I had like one little crash like over in the grass, you're gonna crash pretty much everything you fly in RC. And for the most part, for me anyway, it was about, you know, I would say 90% on point as far as the flight controller and the experience of it. The fun factor is like definitely a 5 out of 5. I'd say the durability factor is probably about 3.5 out of 5, maybe. Probably not the strongest body, but it is kind of made of like almost like a plastic that you'd see in like a kid's like beach pail toy, like a beach bucket. It's kind of that same type of plastic. So I think it's going to be fairly durable. It's not carbon fiber, but everything's still working. And I'm running DJI HD FPV on here now. So I'm going to keep experimenting with other batteries and things as well. But thanks again for watching my review on this wild Bi-Copter drone, guys. Take care. Please do subscribe on the channel. And remember, we got lots of giveaways, a drone store. You can check that out at dronecamps.com. 5 different ways you can buy a drone now, or any of the RC gear that I'm deciding not to use on the channel. I'm sending it all out to you guys. Free drones as well. Free drone store. The internet's first free drone store. They will drop in occasionally, so watch out for those YouTube shorts, guys. They're coming in. Lots of new stuff. Dollar Drone coming up as well. All kinds of cool stuff you can get on the channel for subscribing. Thanks and take care, everybody. I'm Justin Davis. I'll see you on the next one.